Good Sunday morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Southern Oregon Weather Weekend Update. We'll start as usual by looking at our current conditions and review the storm system that moved in over the weekend. Then we'll move to our short-term forecast, which honestly is remarkably similar to last week's forecast. It's nearly a cut and paste. We'll talk about exactly what that is. And then we're still looking for a pattern change, especially moving into mid-March, with maybe some more persistent cooler and wetter conditions. So first, if we look at our GOES satellite image from NOAA here on the left, we see some low clouds hanging around the Willamette Valley in northwest Oregon, but in southwest Oregon here we're seeing largely sunny to partly sunny skies. If you look out your window, you'll see some puffy cumulus clouds. Some of those are hanging around the mountains, maybe producing an occasional flurry, but really the precipitation has ended. Most of it came through yesterday and then overnight. Here on the KMAX radar from Mount Ashland, we see those puffy cumulus clouds generating some returns on the radar, but there's not really any rainfall or snowfall going on at the moment. So how much snow did the mountains pick up from the weak system that moved through over the weekend? Well, Mount Ashland is reporting 2 inches over the past 24 hours as of 6 a.m. And guys, we really weren't expecting very much more than this. Some models, like the WRF, I felt were pretty overdone, too optimistic. They were showing 6 to, in some cases, as much as 8 inches of snow over the mountains. But we were never really expecting more than 2 or 3. And here you can see Crater Lake since midnight has picked up, about a ½ inch of snow, 0.4 of an inch. They saw a little bit more the previous day, but on the whole, not really more than a couple inches. And then here on the right, we see SNOWTEL data from Fish Lake, and once again, just a couple inches of snow. Snow depth increasing from 28 inches around midnight to 30 inches this morning. So pretty light snowfall amounts, but certainly welcome after a week or 2 of dry weather. So what can we expect for the next couple of days? Here once again is our Weather Channel forecast for Medford. We see highs warming up through the week into the upper 50s and then mid 60s by the middle and end of the week. But once again, we're hanging on to low temperatures overnight. This is because we're going to be under north to northwest flow. So we're still going to have cool air coming in from the north and keeping those nighttime temperatures pretty low. This is remarkably similar to what happened last week, where we saw sunny and warming temperatures through the week and then had a storm system for the weekend. So will this week also be capped by a system moving through Friday, Saturday? Well, it looks like yes, it will. This is the front 5 days on the GEFS. Once again, that's the American Ensemble. Here we have these orange and red colors pushing into the west coast, blocking storms, pushing all storms and moisture to the north. That's exactly what happened midweek last week. But then here for this weekend, much as we saw last week, we're going to have a weak system try to push that ridge out of the way. This is the GFS, the American model. And you can see starting at about Thursday afternoon, Friday, we have these blue colors indicating snow, red colors indicating rain, moving into our area, and then showers continuing until Saturday night. If we look at the GEM, the Canadian model, it's also showing a system moving through. Timing is slightly different and it's a little bit weaker, but both of these models are showing some form of precipitation moving through for the weekend. I will say over the past several model runs, as has happened again and again over the winter, the models have trended weaker and weaker with the system. So we'll see if that trend continues. I expect this system will probably be very similar to the system we just saw, with maybe an inch or 2 or 3 over the mountains, but we'll just have to see what happens. So after that, what can we expect? Here's day 10 on all 3 major ensembles. The EPS, that's the European ensemble, which is widely considered the most accurate of the 3 ensembles here. Then there's the GEFS, the American Ensemble on the right, and then on the bottom of the screen, the Canadian Ensemble. They're all showing, once again, these orange and red colors pushing into the west coast, blocking storms from dropping down from the Gulf of Alaska. But they're also showing this area of low pressure, these blue colors, off the coast of California. Now the GEFS and some of the other models slowly move that into California from day 10 through about day 12. And it's just a question of how far north that moisture is going to be able to push. In the springtime, oftentimes, we'll see storm systems come in on the jet stream over the Pacific, and then they'll become detached from the jet stream. And those are called cutoff lows, and the track of those cutoff low systems is pretty difficult to predict. This area of low pressure doesn't seem quite as unpredictable as a classic cutoff low that we would see later in the springtime. But still, it's going to be a question of how far north it drifts and whether we'll see rain and snow associated with that. But on the whole, good agreement from all three ensembles here that this is the pattern we're going to see by day 10. What about after that? Well, here is the forecast from the Canadian ensemble and the American ensemble for the Ides of March, March 15th. And they're both showing some troughing, these blue colors, hanging around the west coast. The GEFS here on the bottom right has weakened over the past several runs, and it's not showing nearly as many blue colors, so the trough is not as strong as it was for this particular ensemble. But the Canadian here on the upper left-hand corner still has a pretty robust troughing signal. So I'll once again have to see if that holds. If we look at our seasonal forecast models, we have the CFS, that's the American Climate Forecast System. In the upper left-hand corner here, that's showing troughing hanging around the west coast really for the entire month of March, so weeks 3, 4, and 5. And then the CANCIPS, that's a Canadian climate model, that's also showing a very similar pattern, ridging over the east, troughing over the west, and then ridging, pretty strong ridging, over the Aleutians. So that's a nice, cool, wet spring pattern for our area. And I think this is because the models are seeing a very strong negative Pacific North American index developing. So these blue bars show that the PNA is expected to trend negative. This is the GEFS forecast for the PNA. And the GEFS really keeps the PNA negative well into the middle of March. Here on the right-hand screen, you see the correlation between the PNA index and what's called geopotential height. That basically is a good indicator of whether there's storminess or whether there's going to be dry and sunny weather over your area. So when geopotential height is high, that means that there's an area of high pressure that's going to block storms. And when it's low, that usually means that there's a trough associated with cooler and wetter conditions. So this map on the right shows the correlation between geopotential height and the PNA. So the green and yellow colors here, they don't mean dry and sunny weather in this instance. That means there's a positive correlation between the PNA and geopotential height. So what the PNA does, geopotential height will do the same thing. So in this case, the PNA is going down, it's trending negative. That means over this area, over the northwest US, that means we can probably expect geopotential height to trend down, to fall as well. And negative heights are associated with troughing and storminess and cooler and wetter weather. So I think that's why the models are showing cooler and wetter weather for the second half of March and even the end of March. However, there is a risk to these forecasts that these models are showing, and that's the Madden-Julian oscillation. We've talked a lot about this. So far I've shown you kind of the pie chart where you see the MJO tracking through the phases 1 through 8, and then we saw the null phase in the middle. I've decided to show you a map this time. It gives you a little bit better of an idea of what the Madden-Julian oscillation actually is. So over on the left-hand side, this is what's called an outgoing long-wave radiation map. Basically, you can think of the blue areas here as areas of storminess. So those are those thunderstorms moving across the Indian Ocean. Here's Australia, here's Africa, and you can see at the top of the chart here, that is showing the conditions on February 29th, so yesterday. Middle here is days 1 through 5, then days 6 through 10, then 11 through 15. So you can see these blue areas slowly moving across the Indian Ocean towards Australia. But interestingly, they never really get past Australia by day 10 through 15. The GEFS here is showing the Madden-Julian Oscillation stalling out kind of over Indonesia to the northwest of Australia. And if we look on the right here, that's associated with phases 3, but more so 4, and then not quite making it into 5. So the GEFS really wants to keep the Madden-Julian Oscillation in phase 4 in the extended period, in the week 2 period. And guys, that's associated with pretty warm and dry conditions over the west coast, especially for California. So that's a risk to the forecast. Right now, all the models are in good agreement that we see a negative PNA pattern through the month of March. However, the MJO could kind of counteract that signal and lead to some warmer and drier conditions maybe over California. But we'll have to see how all this pans out. For now, we're going to see kind of pretty much cut and paste conditions from last week. Warm days and cool nights until the weekend. And then we're expecting some light rain and snow showers possible for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But just like we saw last week, the system is trending weaker on the models. We'll see if it holds together by the weekend. And then we might be in store for more precipitation possible next week, depending on if that area of low pressure moves up from California into southern Oregon. There's pretty good model agreement for cooler and wetter conditions mid-month, probably due to that negative PNA signal we talked about. However, MJO is forecast to stay largely in phases 4 and 5, which would favor slightly warmer and drier conditions. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to set your notifications for the midweek update coming in just a few days. And please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the forecast for today.